All right, so are you ready to really dive deep? Today we're tackling Asian history, but not in like a boring dates and names kind of way.
Right.
We're going for the big picture.
Mm.
The empires, the innovations, the cultural stuff that shaped, well, like a whole continent. And of course, to help us navigate all of that, we have our expert.
Glad to be here. It's always exciting to explore these incredibly vast and influential civilizations and how their legacies still, resonate with us today.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's rewind all the way back. I'm talking really early history here, back to like the rise of agriculture in the Fertile Crescent.
Okay.
That had to be like a major turning point, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Around 10,000 BC is when things really started to change. I mean, agriculture, it completely revolutionized how humans lived. It allowed for settled communities, and then those grew into cities, and eventually, the first really powerful civilizations like the Indus Valley
That was the
civilizations.
Indus Valley people. Now, they were the ones with like incredibly well-planned cities and indoor plumbing way before like most of the world.
Exactly, exactly. From around 3300 to 1300 BC, they flourished. Their urban planning was truly remarkable for its time, especially their sophisticated water and sanitation systems. And around the same time, but over in China, you had the Shang dynasty, who were really making strides with advanced bronze work and even developing a writing system. It's incredible to think about how much these early innovations, they really laid the groundwork for everything that followed.
So from these like early settlements, how did we get to those massive empires? Was it just a case of them like getting bigger and stronger?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. You see, as these early societies expanded, they inevitably started running into other societies, leading to, well, a mix of both conflict and cooperation.
Right.
It was during this period, around 550 BC, that you saw the rise of really powerful empires like the Persians. They stretched all the way from Egypt to the Indus Valley. And this was also around the time when the Silk Road began to emerge, weaving its way across the entire continent.
The Silk Road, it was way more than just a trade route, wasn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
It was like this major pathway for ideas and for different cultures to spread and mix.
Right.
I'm really curious about the impact that had on all those different societies along the way.
Well, the impact was actually pretty transformative. I mean, Buddhism, for example, traveled along those routes all the way from its birthplace in India, and it ended up having this, huge influence on Chinese art and philosophy. And around the same time, in China, you had the rise of Confucianism. Confucianism really emphasized, things like social harmony and respect for authority. And those ideas really ended up shaping the structure of their government for centuries.
Wow, so we've got these empires rising, interacting, new philosophies emerging. So what happens to these empires in the long run? I mean, did they just like keep expanding forever?
Well, history seems to show us this sort of pattern of, rise and fall. Even when you have these periods of immense flourishing and growth, there's always change. Take, for instance, the Gupta Empire in India. They were around from about 320 to 550 AD. And they're known for their incredible advancements in things like mathematics and astronomy. I mean, they actually developed the concept of zero, which revolutionized mathematics, and they even calculated the Earth's circumference, and they were surprisingly accurate.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. But I imagine, though, not all periods were so focused on, intellectual and scientific pursuits. There had to be times of, like, major conflict and upheaval as well, right?
Of course, and a very striking example of that is the Mongol conquests. Under Genghis Khan back in the 13th and 14th centuries, they created the largest continuous land empire in history. It stretched right across Asia,
Wow.
and while their conquests were undeniably destructive, I mean there was a lot of destruction, but you can't deny that they also spurred a huge amount of cultural exchange and helped to spread new ideas and technologies across their vast empire.
Fascinating. So after the Mongols, where does Asian history take us?
Well, we enter a period of increasing global interaction. Starting around the 16th century, you have European powers arriving on the scene in Asia. Initially, they were mostly focused on trade routes, but this eventually led to colonization, and that had, a profound impact on the political systems, the economies, and even the social structures of many Asian nations.
Yeah.
And it left lasting consequences, that we're still dealing with today.
Right, right. And that sets the stage for the 20th century, which was, I mean, just a period of just colossal change for Asia.
Absolutely. It's hard to overstate the impact of the 20th century on Asia. You had the rise of nationalism, these huge independence movements, and of course the devastating impacts of World War II. And then the Cold War further divided the region, shaping the geopolitical landscape of Asia as we know it today.
Wow. What a journey from ancient civilizations to the rise and fall of empires, the birth of new philosophies, and then the impact of global forces on Asia. It's a lot to take in.
It is. And really, we've only scratched the surface here. Each period, each region, each dynasty has a wealth of fascinating stories and details. I mean, we could go on for hours and hours.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, we've covered, well, a lot of ground today. What stood out to you the most? Which period or event, really sparked your curiosity? And what deeper questions do you have after hearing all this?
Yeah, I'd love to hear people's thoughts. And, as you think about all the patterns we've discussed, these empires rising and falling, the incredible innovations, the constant cultural exchange, what do you think the future holds for this dynamic and ever-evolving continent? Something to think about.
It is. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.